You know that feeling when you hear a professionally produced track and you just, wow, how does it sound so perfect? Well, there's this absolutely brilliant concept from a producer named David Gibson that could totally change the way you think about mixing. Seriously, it's all about turning this invisible art into something you can actually see. So, yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so for so many of us, right, the biggest hurdle is the mix. You've got these amazing tracks, these incredible ideas, but trying to get them all to fit together perfectly, man, it can feel like you're chasing a ghost. It's just such an abstract thing, you know? And that jump from good to great, it can be so frustratingly unclear. And really, it all boils down to this one huge, deceptively simple question. What actually makes a great mix? We all know it's not just about turning knobs and pushing faders, right? It's about making art. But, I mean, how are you supposed to be an artist when you can't even see your canvas? This quote it just nails that feeling. I know what I like, but I never know how to get it when I'm in the studio. I think we've all been there. You can hear it in your head, right? That powerful, clear, emotional sound. But you feel like you've been dropped in a forest with no map to get there. And that just leads to endless guessing, random knob turning, and yeah, just getting totally lost in the process. Okay, but this is where the big idea, the game changer, comes in. David Gibson basically proposed this radical shift in perspective. He said, stop just listening to your mix and start seeing it. I want you to imagine right now an empty three-dimensional space just hanging there between your speakers. That is your canvas. That's your soundstage. Now, the technical term for this is imaging. And here's the wild part. It's basically a figment of our imagination. I mean, in reality, the sound is just coming from 2 points, right? Your left speaker and your right speaker. That's it. But our brains do this absolutely incredible magic trick. They create this audio illusion of a whole 3D world where every single sound has its own specific place. And as a mixer, that imaginary world, that becomes your reality.
So, how do we actually build this 3D stage? Well, it's surprisingly intuitive. Think about it. You create the left to right dimension with your panning knobs. Easy enough. You get your front to back dimension with volume. Louder sounds feel like they're right in your face. Quieter sounds feel way back in the room. And then you get their up to down dimension with frequency. High frequencies, like cymbals, they just feel like they're floating up high, while the low frequencies, the bass, feel grounded and down low. See? It just makes sense. All right, so now that we have our 3D space, the next piece of the puzzle is understanding how our studio gear is basically our visual toolkit. Every single tool we use to shape sound has a direct visual counterpart. This is what lets us place and sculpt all the different elements inside that soundstage we just built. And this chart just lays it all out nice and simple. Your panning knob, that's your tool for placing things left to right. Your volume faders, that's how you control depth, pushing things front to back. And your equalizer, your EQ, that's how you control the vertical placement, up and down. And all of a sudden, these kind of abstract technical tools, they have a very real, very concrete visual purpose. You're not just turning up the treble anymore. You're literally lifting the sound higher in the mix. It's a whole new way of thinking. Okay, so let's start building this world. First things first, imagine that every single sound, a vocal, a guitar riff, a snare hit, is a transparent sphere. And the size of that sphere is absolutely key. A big booming bass guitar, that's a giant sphere, and it takes up a ton of room. A tiny little high-frequency bell sound, well, that's just a small pinpoint sphere. It's such an intuitive way to think about how much sonic real estate each instrument is actually taking up. Now, let's add another shape to our little toolkit here, the line. And this comes from using really short delays. We're talking anything under 30 milliseconds. Your brain doesn't actually register that as a separate echo. Instead, it just hears one single, fatter sound. So visually, what we're doing is stretching our sphere out into a line. And this is an incredibly powerful way to make an instrument feel super wide and just fill up the space between the speakers. And our final core shape is the cube. And the cube, well, that represents reverb. I mean, reverb is literally the sound of a room. And a room is a 3D space, right? So it makes perfect sense to visualize it as this big, transparent cube in our mix. And by placing our little spheres inside this cube, we can make them all feel connected, like they're all musicians playing together in the very same acoustic environment.
So there you have it. We've got our visual elements, we've got spheres, we've got lines, and we've got cubes. And with these tools, mixing suddenly stops being this big mystery and it becomes an act of design. You're not just an engineer anymore. You're a sonic sculptor, arranging these shapes on a 3D canvas to create your own masterpiece. But here's the catch. That 3D space between your speakers, it's limited. It's not infinite. So if you've got 100 different instruments, it's going to get real crowded real fast. So the art of mixing, when you think about it this way, is really the art of crowd control. It's all about carefully arranging your spheres and your lines and your cubes so that everything has its own little spot and nothing gets lost in that dreaded muddy mess. And this whole idea leads to two completely different philosophies of crowd control. On one hand, you've got the sparse mix. Think about bluegrass or acoustic jazz. Here, the goal is absolute clarity. You're placing each sphere so carefully that nothing even touches. The mix is totally transparent. But then, you have the complete opposite, the wall of sound. Think heavy metal or Phil Spector. Here, the goal is just pure, raw power. You are intentionally overlapping the spheres, crimming them together, filling every single inch of space to create one massive, cohesive sonic structure. In this case, the mix itself becomes the instrument. So, okay, we've mapped out the space, we've defined our shapes, but it is so important to remember why we're doing all of this. This visual framework, it's not a set of rigid rules you have to follow. It's a key. It's a tool that's designed to help you unlock the technical side of things so you can get past that and focus on what truly, truly matters, the emotion in the music. Man, I just love this quote. Tools are the best when they're invisible. It's so true. It's kind of like trying to build a house, but you're just staring at your hammer the whole time instead of looking at the wood. The whole goal of this visual system is to make your tools so intuitive that they basically become invisible. You stop thinking about EQ settings and you start thinking about, lifting a vocal up into the sky. And this, right here, this is the ultimate takeaway. Every song has its own natural dynamics, right? Its own emotional peaks and valleys. And what we do with our tools, volume, EQ, reverb, those are the studio dynamics. The true art of mixing is when you make your studio dynamics perfectly serve the song's natural dynamics. It's this beautiful dance between your technology and the art itself. So the very next time you sit down and mix a track, I want you to try this. Don't just think about what you're hearing. Think about what you're seeing. Are you building a sparse, crystal clear structure where every sound has its own space? Or are you building a massive, powerful wall of sound? The canvas is yours. So, how are you going to design it?